Hi everyone, and welcome to the Pecos Aesthetic Woodshop. Today we're going to build the last crosscut sled you're ever going to need. It has a flip down fence for repeatable cuts, replaceable zero clearance inserts, hold down clamps, and of course the main benefit, dead on accurate crosscuts.
Recently, I made a video about how to build a crosscut sled if you're just jumping into woodworking. The whole point was to have a sled that was cheap, easy to build, and got you into the game quickly. When you have used that sled for a time and become familiar with how to use it and what it can do, it's time to upgrade to the last crosscut sled you will ever need. That's where this video comes in. I'm going to walk you through how to build this sled, and I encourage you to grab the plans I have available on my website as well. I'm going to tell you how to get them for free later on. I made a point to build this sled using tools that most woodworkers will have access to, so no CNC and Laser Spectacular 3000. This was all done with saws, bandsaws, and routers. To start, I picked up a decent piece of plywood from my local home store. I wanted something that was going to be quality, but not come with a price tag or time investment of Baltic birch. In my area, I have to drive almost 2 hours to get Baltic birch, so I try to avoid it when I can. As promised, no CNC on this build. I'm breaking down this plywood into the sled base and fences that I need with my track saw. Now I can cut out my 4 3¼ inch wide fence parts. Next, I'm going to cut out part of the back side of the sled base to reduce some of the weight. I'm going to do this with my jigsaw. I'm not super concerned with the curve coming out perfect, and I can sand out any sharp edges or corners with my spindle sander. Now I'm going to get to work on my fences. My plan is to double up the 3¼ inch plywood to give myself a nice sturdy fence that is 1.5 inches thick. The front fence will be longer than the back. I'm going to lay out the shape on one long and one short piece first. For the rounded edges, I'm just using a washer to trace around. After that's done, I can cut out the rough shape on my bandsaw. I can cut the straight lines accurately with the bandsaw and then get close to the line on the curves and clean those up with my spindle sander. I'm going to use these pieces as templates for the second sides. To do that, I'm adding some double-sided tape to the fences and then attaching the second piece. I don't want my router to have to work too hard, so I'm going to remove as much of the wood as I can with my bandsaw first. Then I can take them over to my router and use a compression bit and bearing to get 2 identical fence pieces. So the fence has a nice feel to it. I'm going to sand down the sharper edges later. With the fences cut out, I have to add a cutout for my zero clearance inserts to one of the larger fence pieces. I'm doing this quickly with my jigsaw. Now I can glue up the fence pieces.
If you're ready to take the next step and upgrade your Crosscut sled, grab the full plans. The plans will be available on my website with a link in the description. And I'm going to give away 50 sets of free plans for the first 50 people that comment SLED in the comment section. After you comment SLED, I'll send you a discount code that gets you 100% off. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more shop-tested builds.
While the fences are drying, I can install my runners. I'm going with HDPE material for this. HDPE stands for high density polyethylene, which is a type of plastic. When it comes to runners, you have several choices to think about. Is your main concern low cost? Do you want maximum sturdiness? Do you want something that glides easy? Do you not want to deal with cutting your own runners? Hardwood is strong and cheap, but will move with moisture content. Aluminum T-Track is nice and sturdy, but HDPE is just as sturdy and is designed to have very low friction. In addition, HDPE runners come pre-cut to the exact dimensions that you need, assuming your table saw has miter slots that are 3/4 by 3/8 of an inch, which most do. I was most concerned with using something that wouldn't move once installed and would help the sled glide freely, so HDPE was the best choice here. I'm raising up my runners with washers so they will make contact with the sled, and using double-sided tape to adhere the runners to the sled. I find double-sided tape works better on HDPE than CA glue. I can use my fence as a guide and slowly lower my sled base on the runners, then reinforce them with screws. The placement of the runners with reference to the sled is not critical. I roughly tried to center them based off the back of the sled. Next up was cutting the slots on the sled base for T-Track. For this, I first marked the location of where I wanted the tracks. I wanted them 1.5 inches from the blade so that I can clamp small parts. I made a quick mark with the table saw blade to see where the cut would be on the sled, and then laid out the lines with a marking knife. Then I hogged out the majority of the material with my plunge router. I made a jig for my plunge router recently, and it has become a go-to in my shop. Check out that video and grab the free plans too. Once I have the majority of material removed, I'm going to get the final straight cut with the jig I have on my trim router and T-Track. The build is going well so far, but now I've run into a couple of problems. First, after installing the T-Track, I realized I forgot to leave space for the T-bolts to enter the track. So make sure you take that into account before you install yours. The plans have the correct length that you want to cut your track to. I fixed mine by removing some of the T-Track with my trim router and straight cut bit. Second, I noticed the T-Track was sitting just proud of the surface of the sled base. I'm kicking myself because I was trying to get the T-Track perfectly flush with the sled base, which you don't need to do. I definitely remember thinking that at the time, and then I went ahead and did it anyway. Stupid. When you set the depth of cut for your plunge router before hogging out your Dados, make sure to err on the side of caution and make the depth slightly deeper than the depth of the T-Track. If the track ends up sitting a bit low, it really doesn't matter. But if it ends up sitting high, it's going to interfere with your crosscuts. I ended up having to use a straight cut bit in my plunge router to get the track flush with the sled base. Hence why my T-Track is no longer blue on top. Lesson learned. My fences are dry, and after a quick sand to remove the excess glue, I'm going to secure the back fence. It's not critical for the back fence to be square to your blade here, so don't spend a ton of time trying to square it up. Just line it up with the back of your plywood, clamp it down, and countersink some screws. I want these fences to be rock solid, so I'm using number 10 2-inch screws here. With the back fence in, I can add my cut to the sled. We're not going to go all the way through the sled yet, so stop your cut a few inches from the front. We're going to use this line to square up our fence in a minute.
When it comes to the front fence, it's critical to have this part square to your blade. I did a lot of research online to try to find the best way to do this, and what I kept coming across was the 5-cut method. It seemed way overly complicated and overkill for me and the type of work I do in my shop, and I wondered if there was a simpler way. So I dug a little bit more and I found this pivot method that works perfectly fine. I got it to within a couple of thousandths of an inch accurate, and that's more than enough for what I do for my shop. So that's the method I'm going to show you here. By all means, if you want to use the 5-cut square method, there's plenty of videos on YouTube that can teach you how to do that, and I think you should use that to square up your fence, if that's important to you.
First, take your fence and place it on the front of your sled. Lightly clamp it down. Place 2 countersunk drill holes underneath either side of the fence. Line the fence up with the back of the plywood and then secure one of your screws. Take a reliable square and place it against your fence. Square up the fence with the blade slot, and when you're happy with the placement, tighten your clamps. Then you can throw your screw in the opposite end. Much simpler than the 5-cut method and more than adequate with accuracy. A good way to test for squareness of your cut is to make a cut and then flip over the off-cut. If your cut isn't square, there's going to be a gap here. Next, I'm going to make my replaceable zero clearance inserts. This is probably my favorite feature of the sled for a few reasons. First, having zero clearance gives you nice clean cuts with minimal tear out. And second, with your slot being zero clearance, it's a great way to line up your cut, because you know exactly where the blade is going to be. The problem with most sleds is your zero clearance cut slot will get worn out over time and may no longer be zero clearance after heavy use. You'll get to a point where you can't rely on it being accurate anymore. The solution is to create a slot that allows you to replace this part of the fence every so often so you have a nice, fresh zero clearance insert. This slot is 3 inches by 2 5/8 inches, so I'm going to cut out a couple of 3/4 inch pieces at 2.5 inches by 2 7/8 inches. Then I'm going to secure them together using double-sided tape and pre-drilled holes for screws, so I know that they are in the exact same spot. Now I can secure this interchangeable piece to my saw. I'm going to add my T-track and a flip stop fence so I can make repeatable cuts. This is a feature I have on my miter saw now that I use all the time, and it definitely comes in handy. The last feature is to add our safety block. We want to keep all our fingers when using this sled, so creating a safety block to mark the area where the blade comes out lets you know that this is a danger area and not a place for your fingers and hands to go. After I cut out some pieces, I'm going to join them using CA glue and brad nails. I'm going to have a 1/2 inch thick piece of acrylic sit on top of the safety block, so I have some protection but I can still see my saw blade. So I'm going to use a 1/2 inch rabbet bit on my router table to create a shelf and then cut my acrylic to fit in that spot. Then I can secure the block to the back of the front fence using CA glue.
If you want cleaner cuts, better repeatability, and a safer setup with less frustration, this is the sled to build. And if you liked this video, check out this video next to see more from the Pecos Aesthetic Woodshop. Thanks for watching.